Hello and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor live stream here on YouTube. Today I'm going to be working with and demonstrating photo editing with Luminar Neo. If you'd like to participate and have your images edited live on one of these weekly streams, you could submit your images using this link here. So to submit an image, you just fill out the form, and ideally, I'd love for you to send me your raw files. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating using Luminar Neo, and on alternating weeks, I use Lightroom. So next week will be Lightroom, and you can indicate which software you use. But sometimes it's actually good to explore alternatives. So even if you've never seen or used Luminar Neo before, it's good to check it out because you want to be able to see what it could possibly do for you that maybe you're missing out on. So I'm going to have some great images to demonstrate today that have been submitted by followers and subscribers. Let me dig in and get started with Luminar Neo. Okay, I'm back in here and let me get my screen all set up for demonstrating. And I know that we've got a lot of regulars. And let's see, we have our usual suspects. We've got Marty, Wisconsin, Pierre, bienvenue, Pierre from Laval, Deb, Stephanie, Brandon, Vicky, James. I think I had one of your images as well, James. I'm not sure which ones I've picked today, but what you see on the screen, I'm going to try and get through as many of these as possible today. So I might do a little bit faster edit than usual to get through a few extras. James in Ontario. Mark, I do have your raw file, Mark. You can see the difference on the screen here from the JPEG. Holly, I've got yours as well, the cute little ducks. Dale, welcome. Dale, you came from Coffee Break, right? If I remember. Awesome. Well, welcome. First time ever logging into YouTube. Well, welcome, Dale. That is special. So I'm glad you're here. Nina, welcome back. Marguerite, Sheila, awesome. So welcome, everybody. As I said, what I'm going to be doing is demonstrating a few things today in regards to how you can use Luminar Neo to accent, accentuate, enhance your images, as well as fixing. So I like to use my photo editing software to enhance my images, not fix them. So, and that's how I approach the photo editing process. So I'd like to start with a good image to begin with, and I'm going to show you not just how I'm going to use Luminar Neo to edit these photos, but why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, so the ultimate goal is to make the image better and for people to look at that image and go, wow, great photo. Okay, so that is your goal, and you don't want them to look at it and go, oh, nice photo editing. Okay, so the goal is nice image, not nice photo editing. And as Rob has pointed out, we've got a lot of Luminar Neo course students here already. I've just recorded 3 new lessons on the masking and some of the new layers things. So those are going to be added to the course within the next day or two, as Rob just has to do his part, and they will be up in the course for you. I'll send you an email with more information about that as well. If you are new here and you're not familiar with us, we do have a Luminar Neo course. And if you want to pop that link for the Luminar Neo course into the chat, Rob, if you're watching the replay later, the link will be below the video in the description area. All right, so without further ado, let me pick an image here. Let's see. I know we've got Holly and Brandon here. So let me start with the little. Let me start with the bird. We've got a couple of birds, okay? Because I didn't do Brandon's last time, so let's do one of Brandon's, okay? And this is a fantastic image. Like, your bird photography is really great. He's got the bird, like, I'm not sure what he's doing, shaking his head maybe, and some water is flying. I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but it's got a little bit of noise. Let me just see what ISO it was taken at here. If you go into the catalog section of Luminar Neo, I'm using it as a standalone software, but you can also use it as a plugin for Lightroom and Photoshop as well. Right? If you open this little side panel now, this was new with one of the recent updates, you can see the shooting information. Okay, so he's used a really long lens here. He's using the Sony 200 to 600 and a fast shutter speed. What I would have done potentially in this case, Brennan, is open up the aperture a little bit more, open it up to 5.6 or 6.3, and then you wouldn't have had to use such a quite high ISO at 4,000. Let me get my little cursor highlighter here. There we go. Okay, so it is ISO 4000. So we might be able to try out the new noiseless, which is one of the extensions that they've added. Okay, if you are not up to date with your Neo, just go into the Neo menu and choose check for updates. Right. So they did release one that was 1.3.1 the other day, and I think it was just some bug fixes. So make sure that you do the update if you haven't already. And if you're on this version, you'll see this little puzzle piece. This is how you get the extensions. Okay. If you have purchased the package for the extensions, and I'm going to be doing a video to talk about these shortly as well. You can see that I've got HDR merge and noiseless already installed. Those are the ones that have come out so far. And then upscale and AI background are coming soon. Okay. So this little side panel here is where you'll find HDR. And the noiseless one you'll find in the regular tools. Okay. So when we go over to the tools in the edit panel, you'll see noiseless here. Okay. You'll also notice that it is a raw tool. So it applies to the raw file. And this is something new now. So when you go into the edits, which is like the history, it automatically adds noiseless and develop first. So it's kind of telling you, do this first. So let's go and do some noiseless on this one. I'm going to zoom in to 100%. I'm actually going to zoom in to 200%. Okay, so now you can see the amount of noise in this picture. So that's from the high ISO, right? Now the plugin, or the extension as they call them, is recommending that I use middle. Okay, so literally all you have to do is click one of these buttons. So I'm going to use middle. So this is like the level of noise reduction. Okay, so low, medium, and high. So I'm going to use middle, and it's doing its thing. Okay. Once it's completed that, then I'll have the ability to adjust some of these sliders here. Okay, so obviously middle is medium amount, and this one will take a little bit longer to apply. Yes, Dale, Rob is part of DPM. He's AKA webmaster, AKA my husband, and he is in his man cave in the basement. So yes, he is part of DPM. Okay, so we're still working on this noiseless here. It's doing its thing, but hopefully it will do it a little bit quicker. Any questions before we get started while I'm waiting for this to happen? Vicky had a question. Are they available to old Luminar Neo students as well, because they're related to the updates? So in regards to the Luminar Neo course, if you have bought my Luminar Neo course, that's what she's talking about. Any updates that I do that will be added as new lessons are available for you as well. So no extra charge. The course will always be updated for you. So yes, those will be there for you. Okay, now that was great. That just filled the time. We've got the noiseless finished. Now keep in mind, we're looking at this at 200%. Okay, so I'm going to go back to 100% here, which is like actual size. And let's just see it before and after. Can you see what it's doing? It's doing a really great job on that noise. Now the sliders here, if you're not, these are the default, okay? If you're not familiar with what color noise is, I'm going to turn it to 0 and you'll see what happens. You see all these weird color speckles? It's like, I'll just zoom in again. You see all these sort of pink and red colors? That's color noise. So they set it at the default to 50 to get rid of that for you automatically. And I've noticed that applies regardless. Okay, so it's always set to 50. Now, if we want a little bit more noise removed, we can crank this one up and go a little bit farther, right? And I find, though, that if you increase these two sliders, you're going to get the noise back. So the higher you go with the sharpness and the details, you start to get the noise back. So I usually leave the details set at the default, and I'm going to come back to this sharpness here and work on the sharpness using a different tool. Okay. So far, this has done a really great job. getting rid of a lot of that noise. But you'll notice that we haven't lost the sharpness on the bird. And that's a big thing, because when you do noise reduction, it literally is removing sharpness. And I find that Lightroom and Photoshop are not very good at this at all. Okay, so the noiseless, it would be comparable to something like the Topaz Denoise AI plugin or software. And I haven't done a full-on comparison of those two yet, but what I've seen so far, this noiseless is actually doing a really good job comparatively. Right? I could try high as well and see if it takes out a little bit more, but I think so far it's looking pretty good. Okay. Now let's work on some of the raw processing. So the next thing I'm going to do is develop raw, but actually before I do that, I'm going to crop it. So let me just get my head out of the road here, right? Because there's a lot of space around this guy here. And the reason that I'm going to crop is I want to bring attention into the bird a bit more and get rid of some of the bits that are distracting. I want to keep him off center. So let's open the crop tool. Okay, so I want to keep him off center, but this branch down at the bottom here, he's not sitting on it and it's not really adding anything. So I kind of want to get rid of some of this branch, right? I'm going to try the composition AI. So something in Luminar Neo that none of the other softwares that I use have is you can press this composition AI and it's going to try and crop the image for you in terms of what it thinks is a good composition. And exactly what I just talked about, it cropped out that bottom branch. So I actually think that's a pretty good job. I'm going to make sure that it gets rid of all of it so I can come in maybe just a little bit more. And now I have to decide, do I want to keep the end of this branch here? Is that important? Or do I crop into the end of it? Because then it might actually bring our attention back to the bird, okay? When we have the end here, your eye is going to follow this tree, okay, up to this branch here. And we might actually end up sort of following it back to the bird. So it makes sort of a nice cyclical composition. But if I move this over, are we going to lose that? Let's try this composition here and see how it looks. I think that's much more simplified. This one up here, I find a little bit messy as well. And then there's another little thing up top here. So I might just go back and come in a little bit more to get rid of that thing at the top. I could erase it as well. And now our bird is almost sort of on the lower third. He's still in this third here, okay? So I like what's happening with the composition here, okay? Now, oh, did I not crop out that thing at the top? I guess not. Looks like a spot, actually. It looks like a dust spot. Actually, let's leave that and see if the erase tool picks that up, because it might just be a dust spot. Okay, so now we can do develop raw, okay? So remember, over here, we've done noiseless. Now we're going to do develop raw. So this is where we're going to do all of the basic adjustments to the light, right? And we can see our histogram. Make sure you have your histogram showing. If it's not already, that's under the view menu, okay? And what the histogram tells us is that it's very flat. There's no black and there's no white because it's not touching the edges of the graph. So I'm going to use the develop tools to fix that, right? We can also take a look at the camera profile. This is the only place you will see this. Okay, so if you want to use one of your camera profiles, for example, Vivid, look what a nice job that does on this image. Okay, so it brought out a lot more colors than what the original had. It also darkened it and richened it up. So I like what that profile is doing. The next thing I want to do is go into curves. Rob, if you could please share a link to the video I did on using curves, okay? That will give you more information if you want to know. I'm going to show you a real quick version here, but there's another video I have on curves if you want more information. The histogram is repeated here in the curve. And what I want to do is I want to tuck in on the right side, which is whites, and on the left side, which is blacks. I'm going to turn the clipping warnings on using my J key. Okay, so J is a keyboard shortcut. So you need to find the curves tutorial and also signing up for the Luminar Neo keyboard shortcuts, please, Rob. So if I continue to increase the whites, you'll see the clipping here on the branch, and the blacks, you'll see clippings here indicated in blue. And that's what that J key does. It turns on these clipping warnings, okay? You can also do that here. So I'm going to leave it so I'm clipping a little bit of black, but I don't want to clip the white, okay? There's a little bit clipping on this branch here, but I can deal with that using the highlight slider. There's a dance, right? So we have to play this photo editing dance. I'm going to raise this one a little bit, and then I'm going to lift the shadows a little bit. And I'm going to use this smart contrast slider because it does a really great job overall of increasing the contrast on an image. Right? And then exposure down a little bit. So let's just see how we're doing with this tool. Okay? Before and after. So see, when you change the color profile, the camera profile, and we add the blacks in like I've done here, okay, we really start to get much better colors happening in this image. Now keep in mind the exposure slider works on midtones. So that's the background. So if I want to darken the background, we just need to use the exposure slider. Okay. We can work on the bird a little bit more with the white slider. Now the difference between the black and the white sliders here and going at the bottom here is that the ones on the curves just go a little farther. Okay, so you could find that if you go with the white slider, it just goes slower, let's just say. Okay, I've still got a little, I got a little bit too much black here on his head, but we're going to solve that as well. Okay. Another thing that is only here in the Develop Raw tool is under optics. So you can do auto defringe and chromatic aberration here. I didn't see any on this image, right? We can also add some sharpness and do some denoise here, okay? So I'm going to do a little bit of sharpness. Masking keeps it off of the smooth areas like the sky. And I'm just going to do a little bit of noise reduction here. Okay, so once I apply this, keep in mind that noiseless is being applied as well. Right? We're zoomed into 100% here. So you can see that there is quite a bit of noise. There's still a fair bit here. So I'm going to go back to noiseless and either bring this up to high. It's going to analyze again. Hopefully we'll do it a little quicker. Like so. Now, I think some of this noise has been pulled out because I adjusted the color of the background a lot as well. Okay, so I can go in here, back to develop, and just tweak it a little bit. See how that improves it? So you have to be really careful because I can add a bunch more noise reduction here, and that's doing a really good job. So the two combine, but I've lost some sharpness on the bird now. Okay, so you really want to be careful of going too far with the denoise. Look at the color that's coming out in the background now. Okay. The next thing I want to do is add a vignette to darken. And let's just go here. Add the vignette. I change my feather to 0, make it a lot smaller, and then put it around the bird. Let's make it round as well. Then I just put the feather back up again. So I want to feather it really gently, something like that. Okay, now here's a little trick actually. Because we can't get any smaller than this, because we've cropped the image, this is something that they're going to be working on to solve the issue, because when I had it set to 0, it should be in the middle, right? Let me just do this here. It should give you it should start with the outside of the edge of the image, but it doesn't. It starts with the original, right? So that's something, it's not a true post-crop vignette. So that's something that they're working on. So if we want to trick it a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the subject over here like that, right? And I'm just going to make it a circle. So we're darkening all of this bits over here, okay? See that? So I'm darkening all of that area like so. I want to make sure it's nice and soft, okay? And then I can actually just apply the vignette a second time. Okay, so I'm going to make it dark again, make it round. And this time I want it to apply to the left side of the image only. I'm going to make it a little bigger. But I don't want it to apply over here because I already did that, right? Something like that. And now I'm just getting the corners over here and this part. So you can kind of trick it by doing the vignette twice, which is kind of cool. Okay. Do we have any questions here? I see Holly has a question. Okay, let me come back up here. What ISO would you say we should always use noiseless AI? What's the threshold? I don't think there's a hard and fast rule, Holly. It's more about what you see, because you can actually see noise if you do an image that's even ISO 800 if you have an older camera, or if you're doing ISO 800 plus a long exposure, which is nighttime, you'll get more noise as well than an ISO 1600 daytime, for example. Or if you push the exposure up really far, you'll get more noise as well. So there isn't really a rule as to what ISO to use it on. I say use it when you see the noise that you don't want. Simple as that. Okay. Dale said, I find on my older camera darker light, I have to use it all the way down to 2000 and sometimes lower. So exactly what I just said. The older the camera, the poorer high ISO noise performance. Yeah. So Daniela says, to add some points to that question that Holly had, it depends on your camera, the kind of sensor, the way that you take the photos. Exactly what I said. So perfect. Hey, Trish. Charles, stopping by to hit that like button. Well, we're very happy that you did, Charles. Thanks for coming by. Lens focal length will affect noise as well. No, it does not. The lens focal length does not affect the noise. What does affect it is your aperture, because if you have a lens that doesn't have a really big maximum aperture, like 2.8 or something, if you only have 5.6 on your lens, then what happens is the opening is smaller, and therefore you need a higher ISO to compensate. So no, focal length does not affect noise, not directly. Lens quality does not affect noise. Noise is created by 3 different factors. We mentioned high ISO, long exposure, and also in what's called the blue channel. So if you're photographing at night and you have a lot of blue in your image, noise lives in the blue channel. So at night and long exposure, you have a combination of all 3 things. Also, if you're doing HDR, you'll get noise, but lens quality does not actually affect noise. Lens quality has more to do with chromatic aberration, distortion, and overall sharpness. Okay. Great questions, you guys. Yes, it is working. I can go back here and undo it to show you what it was doing. I do find it's the first iteration of this tool as well. So we have to have a little bit of patience in terms of they're going to be enhancing it as we go along. Okay. So this is with the tool on, and see what happens if I turn it off, Peter. So you can definitely see Peter Pan. Very nice. You can see that it definitely is working. Okay. So let me go back over here. So now I want to sharpen that bird up, okay, because he's a little bit not as sharp as he could be. And this is where you could use Topaz Sharpen if you have it. But this is my little trick for this one, because the details panel actually does a really nice job, and we can mask it into just the bird. So look what happens if I do small details. Okay, I'm going to come right into 100%. Okay, so before after. So it's really picking up some details on him. I can do overall sharpness here. So let's see the difference. Okay, that's 100%, which is more than I want to do. But you see how it's really starting to pick up some detail in the bird. So I'm just going to mask it in to the bird. And I'm going to use a radial gradient. Okay, so keep in mind that when you draw your gradient the first time, it always zooms out, which is kind of annoying to me, but it applies the mask to the outside of the gradient. So I want to get most of him, and then I'll kind of refine it a little bit with a brush. Okay, so I want to get it mostly on his body, and then we have to invert it because right now it's applying to the rest of the image, not the bird. Okay, we want it on him. So you want whatever effect you're doing on him, and you want that to be red where the mask is. Okay. Now when I zoom in to him, right, we can see that it's just sharpening him, nothing else. I'm going to add to that. And now this is something else they've added with a recent update as well. And I talked about this in the new video that's going to be added to the course. You can easily switch from paint to erase now. So look at my cursor. In the middle of my circle, there's a plus sign. If I hit X, it changes to minus, and watch the buttons. Paint, erase, paint, erase. And I'm just clicking X, right? So now I can just paint in to the bird where I want to add to the mask. Okay? I get his beak. And I might do a little bit of the stick here as well. Okay, so let's see how that's doing. Let me show the mask here. It's not catching up for some reason. Yeah, it's not showing his body here. So let me just do a little more on his body. Get his tail feathers, like so. Let me zoom in and out. Oops, there we go. Come back, birdie. Come back. Okay, so here's the before. You can see that he's quite blurry, and then it just sharpens him up. Okay, the sharpen, I do find that Topaz's sharpen is better, but again, you have to then go to another software and buy another software. Okay, so if you just have Luminar, use this. If you're using this in conjunction as a plugin with Photoshop in Lightroom, I would start the edits in Lightroom, open it in Photoshop as a smart object, and then use Topaz Sharpen there. Now I mentioned I want to use that erase tool, and I want to go a little faster here. I'm going to see if I hit remove dust spots, because I want to see if it thinks that that one up there is a dust spot and it gets rid of it. If not, I can just remove it. It's still thinking. Let's see. It did. Okay, so see, it was a spot. You might want to just check your sensor, Brandon, and see if it's got some dust on it. Right? So it did recognize it as a spot. Now, if I wanted to get rid of this whole branch here, I can actually just erase it. So I'm going to see what happens if I do that. I find that the first time I do an erase, it takes longer than the second one. You know, I kind of made a mess of that. But let's just see what happens if I do this whole area, right? And see if it blends it in a little bit nicer. So the first one, I often do a small spot because it takes longer. And then the second one, it usually goes a little faster. Usually. And not so much. Okay, so if I've made a big mess and I don't want to use that, I just have to paint over it again, right? And then just click restore. Okay, so not clear, but restore, and it will put the branch back. So I can probably do a better job of getting rid of this branch if I zoom in, okay? So I always recommend doing this. I was just trying to do a shortcut here. So if I do want to get rid of the branch, I would come in and do a little bit at a time and a smaller section, okay? See, that did a much better job, okay? So now I can get rid of this branch. I just have to do it a little section at a time, okay? Much better. Like so. So I'm just going to get rid of that top one. Of course, now we got a spider web sticking out. Okay, so I would do a little more work on that one, Brandon, but I do think that this branch could go, right? It's taking away from the bird, okay? What else would we do with this one? We could actually enhance this one by adding more bokeh. Okay, so if you have my ultimate editing pack or one of my bokeh packs, you can add one of those. Rob, there's some links for you to share. And I'm thinking what kind of colors? These teal blue might look kind of cool in the background. Okay, so we can add these bokehs. Let's just get them positioned. How do we want them? I kind of like them over here like that. And then you just need to adjust the blend mode. So usually it's going to be lighten or screen or overlay. Those are the ones that I usually use. Screen seems to do a nice job here. So see what that does? It just adds a neat little overlay effect. Now, if I don't like the color, we can even change that, right? If we don't like the purple, we can get rid of that. And I would do a little bit of work here to mask it in terms of making sure that it looks like it's behind the stick, okay? Actually, let's just see what it gets from Mask AI. So when we do Mask AI, this is another one of the lessons that I'm adding to the course for you. It's going to analyze the image as to what it thinks is in it and try and figure out the elements that are in the image, and you can mask by that. Okay, so it's chosen flora, and I want to see if it's getting, see, this is the problem. I'm trying to do Mask AI on this layer, and it is the bokeh, right? So it's masking based on the bokeh, not on the stick. So that's my mistake. I mentioned that. I mentioned that in the lesson, and I didn't take my own lessons. Okay, so now I just want to fill this because I removed it all. Okay, so clear means it takes away everything. Fill brings it back, right? And I just want to minimize the bokeh over the stick, okay? Because if it's behind the stick, you wouldn't see it here, right? Oops. I need to erase, not paint. And you see how the stick shows through now? So I would just go through a little bit more and do the whole stick and down here. Okay, so you want the bokeh to look like it's in the background. Okay. See how clearing that stick out a little bit does the trick? And I didn't do a perfect job of painting there by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I did a really lousy job of painting, so I would do a better job. Right? That's better. Right? So do you see the difference? The stick is then behind, right, versus it's clear. So it looks like it's in front. Again, I did a nasty job of masking that. That's why you want to zoom in, right? That's better. Okay, so we just added a quick little bokeh. So if we want to change the color of this one, we can just go to color and do a hue shift. Okay, so this will shift the entire layer's color. Okay, this one here, if we want more blue and green, we can go this way. And then if we just decide, okay, we want to scale the color down a little bit, we could do that too. Okay. I kind of like it blue though, something like that. Okay. I can also completely make it black and white and just have clear bokeh. Okay, so remember everything I'm doing is just applying to the bokeh layer. And then if I want color, I can use toning in the highlights. I'll go 100% here and I can just pick a color. Okay, so now I'm just toning the bokeh. Do I want pink? Do I want yellow? Yellow's kind of nice. Do we want orange? Kind of like the yellow. How about that? So now we just have ever so soft yellow bokeh. We could also go with the red to match that. And there's our final edit. Okay, something like that. All right, thoughts. Now, did I miss any questions here? Question about topaz. All right, let's see. Did I miss anything else here? I'm getting Trisha's question. Let me know if I missed any questions, Rob. What's the deal with Topaz? I like that, Trish. Judging by comments, do they charge every time they upgrade? Yes and no, right? If I open my Topaz right now, I will get a notice telling me that I need to update. However, you don't have to, right? So you just have to ignore it. Here, let me see if I can get it on the other screen here. Okay, so there's my Topaz denoise, for example. Okay, so when I've opened it, it's telling me a new version is available. Do I want to download it now? Okay, version 3.7. But if I do that, it's going to ask me to pay for it. Okay, so I'm going to say no. I'm just going to close that. And now it's just telling me, okay, welcome to denoise. So I just closed it, and now I have the version that I have, okay? Because I have version 2.3.6. If I want to upgrade to 3.7, usually when it's a major upgrade from 1.0 to 2.0, that's when you have to pay. And that's similar with Neo or Luminar, any of the Skyline products. So right now we're at Luminar Neo 1.3. The next one's going to be 1.4, something. When they hit version 2.0, that's when you'd have to pay. But you don't have to pay. You can just keep using the old version. There's nothing that says you can't, right? So I hope that answered that question as to what is the deal with Topaz. I like that. Let's see. Great question, Trish. Thank you very much. So exactly as Danielle has said, you can use the older products, but when you want the new one, you have to pay to upgrade. And that's pretty standard. I mean, if you want to go to Microsoft Word and get an updated Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office, you have to pay. So they can't give you free updates forever. It just doesn't work that way. They have to pay their developer team to make the new products, right? Exactly. So if you want to upgrade every 2 years, Trish, just skip one and upgrade 2 years from now. However, with the Luminar Neo, with the new model that they've come out with now, if you want to switch to a subscription model, you can. And it also means that you'll get all the extensions like noiseless, HDR, and so on included. Again, I'll be doing a video on that, but if anybody has any questions on that now, please let me know. Yeah, whenever I put a bokeh overlay, Holly, if the bokeh should be appearing as if it's in the background, I always make sure that the subject is masked out. Absolutely. Okay, did I miss any questions? See, a good one for you to pick up today, Holly. Yeah, so you could turn your bokeh into black and white and make it any color. Wonderful, right? Dale, I assume you could have used Mask AI to create a mask from the bottom layer to use on the top bokeh. You know, I haven't tried that actually. Let's try that. Let's just go down here. So I would have to, yeah, let's just get Mask AI. And what I need to do, yeah, is find find it where it's finding the branches, right? If it will find the flora. So I'm hoping trees, flora. And I haven't tried. Okay, so let's see what it thinks is flora. That's not bad. That's not bad. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to copy. See, I'm on a layer. It won't let me do that. It won't let me copy the mask from a layer. So that's one of the things that is actually a little bit annoying to me. Let's just do enhance, okay? So if I do enhance, there, we'll do a sky enhance, something like that. Right? That is something that's actually a little bit annoying to me, and I've mentioned to them is that you can't mask or copy a mask from a layer, so it's slightly irritating. So I'm going to copy this one, okay, and we'll just do a mask. So I don't actually need this one, so now I can delete it. Now, when I go up to here, you'll notice under the layer itself, you can't paste either, but you can on the tools. So let's go back here. So I can't really paste it onto the layer. That's the challenge. So yeah. So here, there's no copy or paste on the layers. So I can't do your little trick there, but we tried. I can do it on the tools, but I can't do it on the individual layers. Okay? So no is the answer on that one. So let's get to another image. What do we think about Brandon's bird? So I've got another one of Holly's with the ducks. Is Mark still here? I've got Mark's. Let's do Mark's here. Let me do this one real quick because this one Holly sent me because she shot this one at 6400 ISO. She said it was really dark. Okay, so we want to try the noiseless again on this one. Now here's an interesting image. Look at this histogram. If you didn't believe me before that your image is made up of red, green, blue, look at, there they are. Okay. Okay, cool. I'll do yours next, Mark. Okay, so we wanted to use the noiseless on this one. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. And it's recommending high. Okay, so maybe it's looking at the metadata and the ISO to determine that it needs to use high on this one because of the 6400 ISO, right? Topaz seems to be moving from plugin to full program with new photo AI. Well, that's interesting. I mean, they have Topaz Studio, which I've used. And honestly, I tried it as a raw editor and I didn't really like it. I didn't find that it did as good a job on the raw files as Luminar did. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to work together, actually, where you can use one and the other together with Luminar Neo. But that's interesting that you say that, so I will keep my eye on that. I forgot you cannot copy and paste on layer properties. Yes, unfortunately. And I don't know if that's a programming issue or there must be some logic behind why it can't do it that way. Yeah. So Photo AI, that's the Topaz product. I will have to check that out. Okay, we're still waiting for Noiseless to do its thing. Now, you think that this is taking a long time, but if you go to use Topaz denoise or Topaz sharpen, it takes just as long as well, especially once you go to apply it and go back to Photoshop or whatever if you're using it as a plugin. Yeah. Mark says it's good, but not as good as DxO Pure Raw, and I have not tested that one yet, so that's an interesting one. Here's a curious question for everybody. It sounds like, Mark, you've tried lots of different things and you do use lots of different things. Has anybody tested out or pre-ordered the new Radiant photo that's coming? I'm curious because they're saying that it's coming on the 15th. I had an early trial version of it, a beta version, and I didn't really think it was that good. Okay, so let's see what this has done. Okay, so there is, let's see, our before. There's our before, so it's pretty noisy. And what I'm looking at for sharpness here is the ends of the flowers. I'm going to increase this a little bit here, but watch the end of this part of the flower here. Okay, so as I turn it off, it's just as sharp as it was before denoise. And that's the key, right? So this is doing a really nice job on this image. So to answer your question, Holly, yes, this did a great job here, right? To finish this one, all I would actually do is do a little bit of adjustment here, maybe in the curves. Okay, so if we darken the blacks, brighten the whites, that's going to give it a little bit more contrast, right? Like so. We're not clipping anything. See, look at the color. As I increase the blacks, I've said this time and time again, as you increase the blacks, you get more intense color. Okay, so don't touch that saturation slider. Look at that. Okay, more black, more saturation. I'm going to give it a little bit of smart contrast here. And then all I'm really going to do here, I'm just going to make sure there's no chromatic aberration. All I'm really going to do on this image is use the erase tool to try and get rid of this big block of black up here. And let's just see if it works on here. If I do one pass, fingers crossed. Just that one blob of black up there is kind of bothering me because everything else is orange and really soft colors. It's a really cool shot. Stephanie wants to know, is it hibiscus? Twitter had a vanilla report that DxO was the best. Interesting. I'd love to have a link to that Sheila, send me that by email or Facebook or however you want to send that to me. I'm curious to see what things they use to compare it to, though. Okay. DxO's Photo Raw is actually very expensive. I think it's quite expensive. Okay, so once again, it's not done a great job, but I need to do it closer up. So I'll do this. I'll do this another way. We could crop it, but I'm not a fan of cropping that out. So the only other thing I would do here is actually add some structure, and I want to add some structure just into the flower, not into the background, because when we add structure, look what happens to the noise. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in here. Okay, so we're at 200%. Can you see this noise right in here right now? When I add structure, it's enhancing that. Okay, so if we use structure, I'm just going to paint it in gently into this middle part, and that's it. Okay, so I just want it on this, I guess it's the stamen, right? There. Okay, so see how that's really just punching up the contrast there? Like so. Like that. And that's about all I would do to this image, really, is just get rid of the noise and keep it super simple. You know, maybe a little bit of a vignette. Let's keep it rounder like that. And that's about all I would do here. See that? How it's bringing the eye in? The color's kind of really, really vibrant, so we could adjust the color a little bit as well. If we want to take a little bit of the orange out, we can try that remove color cast. Look at that. Okay, so under the color tool, this remove color cast, look what a great job it does. It really removes the orange. Okay, that's going a little too far, but let's just bring it up a little bit because it's actually doing a nice job there. See how it's bringing out the yellow in the ends of the pollen there? Look at that. There we go. Right? Something like that. So yes, it does do a good job on that one. Now Mark sent me this one. This is the raw file, I believe. Yeah, so this is the cropped version and JPEG. And I see some issues on the corners here. So do you know why you got that, Mark? The lens you used here is a 24 mil, so 24 to 105 on your Sony, and it was a big file, definitely a big file. You could have used a smaller aperture here, but do you know why you got this on the corners? Lens hood. Yes, I would say it could be the lens hood, but more than likely it's actually not. It could be a filter as well. Do you stack your filters, Mark? Because usually a lens hood, because of the way the corners are cut, you'll see them in opposite corners if it's cutting off like that, especially if your lens hood is crooked. Or it could be a combination of lens hood and filter cutoff. Right? So obviously he's cropped that out, so we're going to do that. And we don't need any noise reduction here because he's used a nice low ISO. Do we have any chromatic aberration? No, it's a good Sony lens. So we literally just need to crop those edges out. Let's see what Luminar thinks is a good crop here. And now it's come way in. Again, I find that when I do the composition AI, it does a nice job of how much to crop, but not necessarily the positioning. So for me, I actually don't mind the amount of that it's cropped because it's got the top of the trees here and the bottom of the shadow. I'm going to enhance it just a little bit bigger and expand it a little bit more. So we're getting rid of these cropped corners, right? But it's also simplifying the edges. So there's a lot of busyness over here. Let's go a little bit higher. I want to keep the edge, bottom edge here, okay? And I may even go off the composition in terms of the original aspect ratio, but that's actually not bad. I don't mind that. Okay, so we've got rid of the cropping of the issue on the corner. Make sure we keep this bottom shadow in and the tops of these trees, but these ones can go out. Okay. So let's work with Develop Raw first. Okay, we've got the camera profile and Sony cameras. Again, these are the profiles for his camera, which is Sony. So I'm going to try landscape first. Okay? The reason being is that landscape affects greens and blues. Okay, so do you see what just happened? Just by changing it from the Luminar profile to landscape, we got that. Okay, don't need to do a lot more. Okay, looks pretty good. The next thing I want to do, we're going to check the histogram and so on, but I want to make sure that the defringe and the chromatic aberration are checked off. We can also do distortion correction. So that will sometimes stretch the edges of the image to see what it just did there. So if you shot with a wide angle and things are looking a little bit curved on the edges, checking that off just like that sort of fixes that problem on the edges. And in this case, I think it works well. Okay, so I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to add a little bit of sharpness here. And then I'm going to come in to check our blacks and the whites. So I'm going to turn the clipping warnings on. And what I do here is I'm going to increase until we get some whites clipping, and then just come back until it all disappears. Okay, so no red, a tiny little bit of red right there. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to bring the highlights down. So highlights should bring the sand down. See how that's affecting the sand and the sky? So I'm going to bring the highlights down and the exposure up. So remember, exposure is mid-tone, so that's going to affect the sky a little bit. And then once I've done that, back down with the highlights and back to checking for the clipping warnings. Okay, so I'm always adjusting with this dance. Okay, so I do one here on the curve, highlights, exposure, and then back again. Don't need any smart contrast because this image is shot in the bright sun. We don't need any more contrast. I don't really want to dial it down because then it starts to look flat. Okay, I might punch the shadows up a tiny little bit. Don't need to go far. And then just balance that with exposure down again. Okay, so let's bring the highlights. There we go. So that's looking already pretty good. Now the other thing I didn't check is the horizon straight? So I can click this button here because I'm looking at the horizon in the background here. And let's see if Luminar finds it. Aha! So it was not. Okay, so now we're straight. So just using that little button there, we can correct the horizon straightness. Okay. There we go. Let's go to Enhance AI next. So if we really want to punch up this sky, okay, we can use the sky enhancer. But I find that especially in one like this, it tends to go overboard, right? If anything, I want less of that. So that one doesn't work for me. We're just going to skip it. What I do want to do is darken that sand a little bit more so that it's not quite so bright. And what I might try is one of my favorite tools. Okay, so some of my favorite tools I've listed up here under favorites. If you're not sure how to get them showing up there, right? Let's say, for example, I want super contrast as a favorite. You can just right click it and choose add to favorites. See, it disappeared. And now it's up here under favorites. Okay, but it's not my favorite. So color harmony and mystical are two of my favorites. Okay. All right, so I'm going to bring the color harmony contrast up a little bit. And now look what it did for the greens. Look at the trees and the landscape. And then I'm just going to dial in or play around with this slider here. So I dial the amount up fairly high and then just play with this slider to get the effect that I want. So if I want to minimize the sky, okay, now we've brightened the sands. That's the opposite of what I want. And now we're lightening the sky. See that? It's actually a good thing because now I can darken the whole image overall. I find it's a little bit purple as well. Right? Let's see if we can adjust that here. We can make the sand warmer. Okay, so this slider here, under split color warmth in the color harmony tool, this slider here makes already warm colors warmer. So anything that's yellow and orange makes it more so. Right? Blue makes it more blue. But let's see if we go this way, if we can get rid of some of that purple in the sky. Yes. Right? Something like that. So see what this tool is doing? Okay, so it's brightening the sky, balancing it out a little more, And then I'm going to come in back to develop and darken it. So I can do that two ways. I can open the develop tool again, or I can go back here. Now keep in mind that when I do that, it's going to turn off the other edits. So this is the tricky part. If I'm going back here, I have to guess. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that exposure edit. Okay, now that I'm back here under color harmony, I have to guess. Okay, so a better way to do it, I'm just going to dial that down a little bit. Okay, a better way to do it is actually do develop again and just put it where you want it. Okay, so I'm just going to darken overall, something like that. Now I might actually need more white again because my clouds are going a little bit blue. Something like that. We can also go back to the original and adjust the white balance. Okay, so your white balance is under the develop raw tool, right? Under color. And this is the only time that you'll see again these presets that came with the camera. So if I want to go with daylight, see it did shift the color, okay? Because it was quite purple. Now I find it as a little bit too cyan. So I want to find a balance in here somewhere. Let's see. Something like that. Okay, now when I go back here, I may have to alter what I've done here. Okay? So again, it's always do one thing, check it, do another thing. Like so. So let's see where we're at. I haven't done a vignette yet. So we've corrected some distortion. Okay? Got rid of the edges, and let's do a vignette. I don't know about you guys, but this looks really appealing. This looks like a scene that I want to be at. Okay, so I'm just going to center it. Remember, we cropped. I want to darken the sand. So my goal with this vignette is to darken the sand, right? So, and I might even darken more on this side. So I could put the vignette off center. So I want to draw attention to sort of this lounge area, right? Let's bring my feather up high. And then just the amount. So my trick is amount down, feather down, get the placement and the size, and then put it back. Okay. Before and after. Oh, question. Where is the question? Where do you see the price of $340 for Neo plus extensions? That's not the current price. Tell me where you saw that price, Charles. That is not the current price. Where's the question? Can I paint in Luminar Neo as in Topaz with impression? No, that's one thing that it does not have. It does not have a tool for doing like an oil paint style. I know what you mean, Pierre. That's definitely a Topaz thing. So if you wanted to do that currently, I believe you can send it from here to Topaz, I think. If you right click an image, you can do open in. Yeah, and currently it doesn't take it to Topaz. If you have Photoshop, you could open this image in Photoshop and then apply Topaz. If not, you would just have to save it as a TIFF or a JPEG and then take it to Topaz. Okay. All right, so there's our before and after. So I'm literally just correcting some color and punching it up a little bit, and this image doesn't need a whole lot of work. Okay. I might add a little bit more structure here to give it a bit of punch or add some structure. But you want to be careful with this one of going too far. Well, that's interesting. Look what it's doing over here. That's doing something interesting there. Why is it doing that around the sky? Like so. And be careful with details as well so that you don't over sharpen. I'm going to come into about 50% here. So this is the area that I want to look at when I'm sharpening. Okay. Make sure you check masking again, because if you take sharpening up real high and you don't mask it, your sky will start to pick up noise because it will sharpen every little pixel. right? So you can see there's starting to be noise in the sky where there shouldn't be. So be really gentle with sharpening and don't go too far. I usually use it around 20 or so, and I find medium details is the one that I like, that brings out more sort of punch in the image. Right? But yeah, great image. I want to be sitting there right now. You also erase the garbage in the sand. Yeah, probably a good call. Down here somewhere, it looks like maybe there's, oh yeah, like some seaweed or something. Yep, good call. Let's see. If you're using, please use our discount code, Pete. It is Peter Pan. It's DPM Neo, right? That's our discount code. I'm not sure what discount code you're referencing there, Peter, but again, still Neo is not 100 and 300 and some dollars. I need to go through the email from them and go over the pricing again, because it is a bit confusing. But I want to switch images here. So we're going from birds to the beach to a portrait. And I may only get through this one today because I had a fellow that asked about batch processing. This was Richard's image. And I actually want to demonstrate that with these two, because this was an image that was sent to me by a friend of mine on Facebook. I saw her post these images and I thought Neo would do a really great job on these. They're great images to begin with. Okay. But we can enhance them in Luminar Neo and make a preset. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. Let's see. Charles says you were looking at the checkout, not logged in as a current user. 109 for lifetime Neo and 229 discounted for the extension pack. Again, I have to check those prices, Charles. You could be right. Yeah. I've been asked a lot of questions about the extension pack and should I get it? Shouldn't I get it? I know the early bird pricing sort of ended the other day. And if you don't feel the need to have all of them, like if you don't see the need of the use, currently they've announced we've got HDR and noiseless already. They've announced one that's for upsizing images, and another which is for cutting out the background of a non-portrait, like for example the bird, if we wanted to cut the background out. If you don't feel you're going to need those things, why do you want the whole pack? Once they are all out in November, it's my understanding that you'll be able to buy just one or get just one extension, right? Take care, James. Thanks for coming. All right, so this one, I want to do some basic editing first again, and I don't think it needs any noiseless because it's a clean raw file. So I'm just going to do the optics first, okay, as usual. And I'm going to see about a camera profile here. Let's try portrait. Okay, so see what portrait did. It enhances the skin tone colors versus if we do landscape, it enhances more of the greens. Actually, landscape works well on this one too, right? So the Luminar default, which I believe is Adobe standard. Yeah, so it's the same. Okay, so the Luminar default is Adobe standard. We can try camera neutral, but in this case, I actually liked the landscape one. So see how it punched up those yellows and greens? Let's just see versus the portrait one. Yellows and greens look fairly similar in portrait too. Okay. Actually, let's go with standard. I don't want to bring those greens out too much because I want the idea is to bring out her, right? So we're going to start with that. Now, when we look at the histogram, we can see that there's lots clipping, okay? So lots of this stuff in the background and parts of her shoes and bits on her leg here. This is what's clipping in the highlight area. So clipping means no detail. So we can try and bring that back using the highlight slider or the curves, right? But the question is, do we want that? Do we care if there's detail in that background? Okay, so if I'm bringing the highlights down, it affects the whole image. Okay, I might also bring the whites down. So I could go quite far with it, and I'm still not getting this detail. right? If I go this way with the whites, aha. So this is a trick with the curve, right? You can't go any farther. Look at the whites. I'm going all the way with whites, all the way with highlights. I'm still getting clipping, right? So this is a good example of what we can do with the curve. So instead of going in and increasing the white, we go down to decrease it. So we just bring that down. I'm going to bring it down just a tiny bit, like so, and then use it in combination with the highlight slider. Actually, let me do that a little more. There we go. I'm just sort of looking for that threshold of where it disappears. There we go. Okay, now I want to make sure that I've got some black clipping. Again, color matters. And the color will be enhanced when I bring that black down. Then I'm going to brighten it a little, which again could bring those highlights back. But I'm editing for her, not for the background. Okay. We can also decide to go for a really light, airy feel here, which is kind of what she did with her original edit that I saw on Facebook. Okay. We can check the color. I'm going to go with, let's try daylight versus cloudy. Now we're getting really, really super warm. So that's a little bit overly warm. I find this one, it's really cool. So I am going to warm her up a little bit just using the slider. We could also try the eyedropper. Okay. Now she's got white boots. So we could try clicking the white boots and see if that works. Or we can also see if her dress is neutral, right, on one of the white areas. She still looks pretty green to me. So I'm going to make sure that she's pink. See the difference? Like so. So far, we're warming her up. I still see a little bit of green. I think we got a thunderstorm coming, Rob. I just heard a rumbling there. So if we lose power, we literally have lost power. We were supposed to be going to Jasper this weekend, Jasper, Alberta, in the mountains for our anniversary. And apparently Jasper has no power as well. All right, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to jump straight down into the portrait tools because I really want to show what these can do, right? Face AI is the first one that I want to use because I find that her face could have a little bit more light on it. So whether she was using a reflector or a flash, I'm not sure, but I'm going to light her face. Right? Look what a great job this does, right? So it finds her face and just brightens her. Now, the other trick with this one, and I showed this one in another video. You heard thunder just after me, Vicky. Yeah, Vicky's in the same city. And so another trick that I showed is if we go super far with this one, we can actually use this to sort of make a custom vignette. So I can take the face light up and then bring the overall exposure of the whole image down and see how that actually just makes her face stand out even more. Right? So we can go back here to the face tool. Let me come back here. So I can go even a little farther. She doesn't need a slimming of the face, but we can do that if we want. I'm going to come in and check the eyes. So this is where the portrait tools in Luminar are really great and quicker. Okay, so it's not that you can't do these same kinds of things with Lightroom or with Photoshop, but you do them a lot faster. Okay, so she's got, I'm waiting for it to load on me here. I'm waiting for it to catch up. There we go. Oops. Where'd she go? Okay, so she's got bluish eyes, and you can see the color fairly well. This slider here to enhance eyes will kind of pick up the texture in the eyes a little bit more. Flare gives you a light sort of at the bottom of the iris. If she's a little bit squinty, we can actually even open her eyes a bit with enlarged eyes. Keep these ones minimal, okay? You don't want to go too crazy with eye whitening and so on. Let's do that. She doesn't have any dark circles under her eyes. And a little trick with the eyes is if you change the color. So we can try blue eyes. And we can also try gray. Yeah, it's not loading in for me. It's definitely lighting her. But I'm not getting this working on the eyes here. Let's go back to original. I think my computer is slow today. And it is not working on here. I'm going to just get rid of this develop one. There we go. We'll come back to face. Give it a minute to catch up. $13 years. Yes, exactly. Lucky 13. Okay, now I'm back in the tool. I'm going to lighter just a little bit less. And let me just see if this is picking up the eye color. It is not picking up her eye color. Okay, if all else fails, I'm going to just undo that tool and apply it again. Okay, so going back to face AI, I'm going to lighter. And let's do the eyes. I'm just going to go to extreme to make sure that it's actually working. Doesn't seem to be picking up her eyes, does it? Because I should get green eyes. It is not working for me. Oh, there we go. I got green eyes. There we go. I'm going to go with gray, actually. Okay, now you can see it's picking up this eye and not this eye for some reason. I'm not sure why. Now I can scale it back a little bit. There we go. See how that's sparking up the color in that particular eye. It should pick up both eyes. Why it's not, I am not sure. Let's give her a little bit of teeth whitening. And then I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the skin AI. Now, she's got really nice, beautiful, smooth skin. So she doesn't probably need a lot here. But this amount slider is amount of smoothing. I got some weird computer stuff going on today. I think my computer is playing tricks on me. Bear with me for a minute here. Let me see if I can close anything else out. Nope. All right, let me try the skin again. Weird. I am not having a lot of luck here. All right. We're going to start over again. I'm going to go with a preset on this one. And this is actually a preset that I made, which is, where are we? Basic portrait. I'm going to use this one here. You can see I did it on a photo of myself that I photographed recently. Okay, did that apply? I may just have to close Neo and come back. Christian, Charles, have you compared the internal denoise to the noiseless extension? I find that the raw under the noiseless, the denoise under raw plus noiseless does a better job than does the better job than the old denoise. So yes, I have compared them. Yeah. Okay, I think I've got, there we go. Okay, so here's my portrait preset. Okay, so all I did was one click here. And this is one that I had set up with a few of the portrait tools already set up. Okay, so I've done skin, face, and glow. And glow is like the, I like to use the Orton effect. Let me just close Luminar and come back again because my computer is not cooperating with me. Let me just give it a little break here. All right. There we go. Holly, that one doesn't work anymore. Actually, that one only worked for Luminar AI. The new code is DPM Neo. That's the new one. It should work on the purchase as well, Peter. I'm not sure where you're getting that other discount code. That's somebody else's discount code, I think. But if you use mine, we do get a credit for the sale. So whoever code you use, if you're enjoying our content and our videos, please do use our code because we do get a small commission on that and we do get credit for that. But it should, you love my wallpaper. Honestly, it's just a Mac one. Okay, let's see. I've got Neo open again. I'm having trouble. I think her files are really big. It's an R5 file, and I've not used this kind of file before, so I'm maybe struggling with this kind of file. So let's give it one more go. And if that doesn't work, we'll have to try a different image here. You guys are talking about tabs and browsers. Yes, Rob is the master of multiple tabs on a browser at one time. Yeah, I'm not having too much luck on this one. Oh, it says it is doing it a little bit. Let me try this one. So I made, these are all a few presets that I made myself inside of Luminar Neo. And ideally you want to make your own. You can purchase some. I'm going to be making some for the marketplace. And as of tomorrow, some of our bokehs will be in the marketplace on Skylum as well. So you can buy a set from there. Yeah, I'm not sure that it's doing. Oh, it is. See, it's slimming her face, which is what I didn't want, but let's just see what it's doing here. That's okay. Okay, so we're going to do face. We do not want to slim her face. And let's just see if we can get her eyes working here. Okay, eye enhancer. I'm going to take enlarge eyes to the extreme. Yeah, it is not picking up her eyes. I think it might be fooled by the hat for some reason. I could try this on the other image of the two ladies, but I've not had it do that on me before. So let's try my group photo preset. See what that does. Because I want to pull this one into the portrait bokeh and blur that background even more. You can also cut out the background as well. The bokeh pack, you can actually get our bokeh pack on our website as well, and you can get more of them. So you can just go to our website. Rob's going to provide a link for you as well. You can buy a small pack. Holly's got some of them. Yeah, I think I'm having trouble with these files. I'll have to check and see if the Canon R5 is compatible with Luminar Neo because I'm having issues getting these to load. So unfortunately, I'm going to come back to those on another day. Stephanie, are you still here? I can do yours up real quick for you if Stephanie is still here. She sent me this image quite a while ago, must be last fall. And as we're coming up to fall again soon, maybe this is more appropriate. I don't like to think that fall is coming. But where I would start with this one is develop. I always start with develop raw. And let's check the camera profiles. I'm going to start with the landscape one. See, it's pretty red. Let's see if we can do one that's a little more, that's better. Let's go with neutral. And the biggest way to get color, remember, is to watch your histogram, right? Turning on the clipping warnings. I'm dragging it up till we get some whites clipping. Oh, we should have lots of whites clipping now. Okay, so see how that's brightening it? And then I'm going to go a little on the blacks to give it some black. And now we can play with the colors here. So I'm going to bring highlights down, midtones up. I really wish they would relabel this in all photo editing software and call the exposure slider midtones because that's really what it is, right? Let's try cloudy on this one. We should get lots more yellow. I like the cloudy one. I like the yellow. So, we're just brightening it like so. And now this one is like two different images, okay? how do we want to crop this, if at all? So if I'm going to crop this, I'm looking at the edges of the image here. I see little bits of things sticking out, including a little thing up here and this stem. So let's see what Luminar how it wants to crop it. And if anything, I want more of the actual leaves, okay, and less of the sort of secondary stuff over here. So I'm going to give it a little bit more space, but I like the idea of getting rid of this stuff at the bottom or at the top here and simplifying these things on the edges. So I'm looking at edges to get rid of some bits of pieces of things. Okay, so just come in a little bit closer. Now I want to give it some structure, but I only want the structure on this half of the image. Okay, so we can go quite high, and let's just see what it does. Look at the texture of these leaves coming out, but it doesn't do a good thing on the background. Right? It does do a nice thing over here. So that new masking tools that came out a couple of versions ago, we have a linear gradient. And this one is great because wherever you draw the line, it always comes from one edge in, right? The further apart you drag it, the more you get sort of a gradation. And in this case, I'm going to leave it fairly close together because I really want it to match up with this line here. Make note, if you need to rotate this at all, go to the edge, because trying to do it here is nearly impossible. Okay, so I want to line that up with the edge and then push these even closer together. So I just want structure on this side of the image. Okay, see how that's working now? We're not getting those stems, but I'm okay with that. I could go in and paint that in if I want, but they're just stems, so I'm not too worried about that. Right? Now, if I want less structure in this part, I can apply it again and do minus. I should have copied that one. I can just mask it again, and this time apply the linear gradient on this side. Lining it up again. I'm going to let it fade a little bit on this side. Okay. And now the stems are getting blurry, so I might want to mask those out as well using the brush and just erasing it. So I need to come in closer. In this case, I would use less softness on the brush and just make the brush closer in size to the actual stem. Okay, so I'm just kind of adjusting it minutely here. So I'm trying to match, see the inner circle? So not the green circle. That's just my cursor. Right? I'm trying to match the size of the stem a little better. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then I'm just going to carefully, and I would use my tablet to paint this because trying to do this with a mouse is really difficult. See how jiggly I am? I would do this with my Wacom tablet. That's actually not too bad. Even though I'm not perfect with my painting, you can definitely see that the stem has better sharpness. Okay? So let's just assume I've done both of those stems, right? And I could copy and paste that mask if I do a good job onto the other one as well. So there we go, brightened up, texture on this side, less texture on that side. This is a really cool image, Stephanie. I like the texture. I like the way you did it sort of half and half. It's a really cool image. This might look really neat printed up and hang on your wall. You could actually even do a texture overlay on this one if you like. We could try landscape here. Because golden hour is going to increase the gold, right? So again, this is where I would do a copy and paste of a mask, okay? So I like what's happening on this side of the image, but not over here, okay? So I'm going to go back here to the second one that I did, and I'm going to copy this mask. I only did the one leaf, but we'll get close enough. And then I'm going to paste it in here. And of course, I need to invert it because it's showing on this side. So now it's over there. I would do a much better job masking in this other leaf as well. But that golden hour did a nice job to bring out the yellow in the leaves. I'd love to know what kind of tree that is, or is that a flower and then leaves on the bottom? What kind of, do you know what kind of tree or flower? You reduce the price of the bokeh pack, Rob? Can I provide more separation for the stems sticking out? Okay, so then yes, I would have to go back to my first one and do the mask better. So I'm going to actually paste that mask in and then invert it because I did the one stem. And then I'm just going to come back and do this other stem. So the stems weren't standing out very well because I blurred it, right, with my second. And I didn't add the crunchiness of the first one. Okay. So let me just paint in carefully here. Paint carefully. I'm trying to do this with a mouse, and I'm not doing a very good job. Yeah, you see I missed the edges here. So I would go back and try and do a better job here. There, that's better. Clean up my edges a little bit. So once you do a masking job like this, once, you don't have to do it again, right? You just have to do it once. I'm just using a softer edged brush to get it fading a little bit. There we go. Then I can copy and paste to the other tools. And my stomach is growling, so it tells me that I'm getting close to supper time. Okay, how's our mask? See, I didn't do a very good job on this one, did I? Let's just paint this one in. And there we go. Okay, showing the mask. Again, I didn't do a great job. Let's just get the edges here. So once I get this, I'm going to copy this mask. Okay, so now I'm copying. I've done a good job on that one. And I'm going to paste it into this one and invert it. Okay. So if you're not sure where your mask is, just click show. So I want to invert it because that's the one I'm blurring the background. And then I'm going to paste it into this one. So is that a better job getting the stems to stand out a little better? Like so. I could take it one more step and actually get rid of some of the color here. For example, if we want the stems to stand out a bit more, we could lower the saturation here. And then again, just paste this in, invert it. So now I'm just lowering the color on the background. Okay. So the stems stand out more. How's that? Ginkgo. So how's that, Dale? More separation? Let's see. Ginkgo leaves. Oh, tree. Okay, cool. You would be licking them? What do they taste like? I've never seen a ginkgo tree. Treatment for dementia. Interesting. Okay, cool. So yeah, the added structure, because I didn't paint them in when I did the plus structure the first time, and then I did minus structure, the stems were getting blurred, right? So because I used the linear gradient and I'm trying to do it kind of quick and dirty, but yes, once you paint the stems in, so take the time to do that masking, especially if you have an image like this, because it will make the difference, right? We could actually do something really cool here and do the background black and white, or I could just, kind of do it partial color. I'm just going to do it really low like this, and then mask it in here as well. Okay, so Now the background is fading out even more, right? Or we could go full black and white. Then I have to make sure my edge is cleaner. See? So I could do the edge better as well. So that there's multiple different ways to get those leaves to stand out more. Right? So yeah, do your basic editing in Lightroom then, Stephanie, and then take it over to Neo to do some of this, to do some of the effects, right? And of course, I can always apply one of my favorites, right? Mystical, to give it sort of a nice little glow at the end, and just do it overall, like so. I like Mystical to finish things, especially stuff like this that is natural. I like it to have sort of this nice little glow. Would make your memory better if you lick them. Well, are they poisonous? We don't know. I don't know. Somebody tell me if ginkgo leaves are poisonous. But what if they taste good? Right? Have you ever seen stevia plants? Because they make stevia the sweetener from stevia the plant. And if you eat the leaves, they actually taste like sugar. Right? To reiterate what Rob says in the comments, I start with Lightroom and I finish with Neo. So when I'm doing demonstrations like this, I'm using Luminar Neo as a standalone, but generally in my own workflow, yes, I am using it from Lightroom, right? So just a reminder, if you want to submit your images, that is the link to do so. Please send your images for next week for Lightroom and following week for Luminar Neo. We're going to start doing themes again. We did that in the past. So if you have anything on a theme, we're going to be, let's do fall. We want fall pictures. So I should have saved Stephanie's for this one, but maybe I'll do it again. Maybe I'll do a different version, Stephanie. So I want fall images. If you've got another one, send me your fall images. It should be coming soon. Fall is coming soon. So I want to see yellow leaves. I want to see brown grass or whatever you think of as fall. It could just be one leaf, right? Find one leaf. Yes, we use a stevia in our coffee as well. So we used to do a lot of Tim Hortons coffee. Vicky would know this, right? Tim Hortons, Canadians, Brandon, and we were always getting the vanilla Tim Hortons. Well, we found a stevia with French vanilla, and I found another one which was like a caramel or toffee flavor, and it's like stevia, so it's 0 calories and 0 bad things in it for you, and it tastes just like a Tim Hortons French vanilla. So yes, we save all the calories there. Yes, the one in your pocket for 10 years is probably expired. So I'm going to sign off from here because I feel like I'm just repeating myself and rambling and my hair is kind of sticking out, craziness. And if Jadine, I'm going to let Jadine know that the portrait images that she sent me, I'm actually going to try it again using Lightroom to Photoshop and then opening it as a plugin, because I'm not sure if it's having trouble with the file, the R6 file. Okay, so I'm going to check out the compatibility of that with Luminar Neo just to see if that was my issue on those, because it seemed really unresponsive. Right, so thanks everybody for coming, and I'm glad that you learned some stuff. And we will do some ducks later. So also bird photos. If you have any more bird photos, Brandon, I know you have tons of birds. I'm going to save your ducks, and I've got some other ducks as well that are in a pond. So birds is going to be another theme. We want fall pictures. We want bird pictures. What other themes can you guys think of? Yes, we have to get our ducks in a row. Ha ha, very funny. What other themes can you guys think of? How about macro? We haven't done any macro stuff, so close-ups. 3 ideas. You want your fall pictures, your birds, and your close-ups. So close-ups of anything. Sure, insects. Yes, absolutely. You got to get close to do insects. So absolutely, we want insects. We'll do spooky next month, Holly. That's a good idea for Halloween. We'll do that next month. So we want fall, birds, and close-ups. Yes, fall, birds, and close-ups. There isn't focus stacking in Neo currently, We don't know what the other extensions are yet going to be. There's still 3 that are unannounced. So I have my fingers crossed for focus stacking. Yes. But I could definitely do focus stacking from Lightroom into Photoshop. So you can definitely send me those, Stephanie, for sure. I can do them in Photoshop. You're most welcome, Pierre, de rien, and for Daniela. Hasta pronto. Everybody, hope to see you next week for the Lightroom one. So even if you don't use Lightroom, come and watch anyways, because the techniques and stuff that I'm doing there, you can still do in Luminar Neo or whatever software you are using. It's the ideas behind the editing of why we're doing what we're doing to bring out the subject, right? So you'll get some tips along the way. Take care, everybody, and hopefully we're going to get some rain here in Alberta because we need it to put out those Jasper fires. Take care and stay safe.